My name is Claudine Ullman, actress, improviser, and all-round hustler, and you're listening to the Big Time Podcast, my chance to speak to industry greats, movers, shakers, and game changers, people who are making waves and setting new standards. Who are they? What inspires them? And what do they have to do to hit the big time? You hit the big time, baby! Hi guys, I am so excited. Hello YouTube, hello Facebook, hello TikTok. We are live, and on today's episode is the incredibly talented theatre guru, director, Cirque Du Soleil human. He's done so much more, but I can't wait to talk to him. Everybody, it's Daniel Buckland.
Hi, everybody.
They're all clapping. They're all clapping. They're going crazy.
And they clap louder.
Wow, wow.
You do that every morning when I get out of bed. If you just pop up on a screen for me, Claudine, and go, yeah, I'm out of bed today. That's my level of achievement. That's my standard at the moment. That's where I hold the bar. Do I get out of bed every morning?
And that's actually quite nice. You're giving me ideas in terms of how I should wake up every morning too. I feel like I should just record myself going, ladies and gentlemen, she's about to kill today. Please go crazy for Claudine Ullman.
It's a great idea. You could bottle that and sell it and make millions.
Well, thank you. That's what I'm about to do. Boo. Dan, how are you? You are looking so great. Are you enjoying it? Tell me everything.
I mean, I suppose that kind of story is kind of boring of late. I've been staying at home, locked down. I have the benefit of having a kind of like wickedly whip smart brother who is also a notorious catastrophist, who kind of started waving warning flags in January about COVID. So I kind of heard him and then poo-pooed his advice, and then slowly he turned out to be more and more right. So my partner and I have been kind of locking down for quite a while. And that's been interesting and tough, and learning how to like establish new rhythms for ourselves and how to share the space with your partner, which is a complicated thing. You know, you're in each other's personal bubble 24/7, and that can be wonderful, and it also can be challenging. So yeah, I've been
Good. I told Daniel, my husband, that I am loving lockdown with him, and I just want him to like cut off from all his friends and family forever, because I'm loving his full attention.
That's not creepy at all.
So I've told him, I'm like, just cut off now.
Yeah.
Do it. Blame it on lockdown.
Exactly. And I mean, it's a sacrifice. Look what you gain. You lose all your friends, but you get 100% more Claudine Ullman. Come on, you can say no to that.
Oh, I get what you're saying, Daniel. Okay, yes.
In the time that you would have had friends and family, now you get more Claudine.
I mean, I think it's a win-win situation, Dan, totally. Okay, but it sounds like you're coping, which is great for this time. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think freelancers generally have a slightly easier time in that you spend a lot of your time at home, either writing or devising or coming up with new projects and stuff. So the idea of working from home wasn't foreign for neither Maud or I. We were kind of just the amount of working from home was quite foreign, and the kind of claustrophobia and the cabin fever, that was kind of new. But certainly the fact that we had to turn this into an office was not a huge thing for us. So coping, yeah. Thriving, maybe not.
Probably not. Dan, Coping is good. What I want to know is, have you been able to like be creative during this time? And as a creative, are you able to move online fully?
Yeah, that is the $1,000,000 question. I mean, yeah, it's tough. Generally, it's been a struggle to be creative. And it's been a struggle to be creative within that specific thing of taking live performance and shifting it into a digital platform. I mean, being creative as it stands is so kind of tied up in your daily rituals and your triggers, and everyone's got their own set of triggers. And mine used to be running or waking up early and like kind of being in kind of dream state before I was conscious, or having a long bath. Those usually were triggers, but it's kind of been slightly upset by the kind of new rhythms. But certainly the fact that you're trying to be creative with your usual triggers, at the same time you're trying to imagine what you want to say at this crazy time, which is almost very hard, because if you pick something to say that's about COVID, which is like the most pressing thing, you know that everyone is saying a similar thing. So there's that kind of tension between not wanting to just contribute to the mass hysteria or just say the same thing as everyone else. But there's that, like, that is the monkey on your back, right? And it's hard to deny. There's that. And then B, just having your normal creative rhythms upset. And then C, you're not only being creative about the substance of the work, you're being creative about the form, and you're being creative in ways that you've never been creative before. You know, I'm quite used to being creative, I suppose, in a theatrical way of getting the performers in the space and then going, okay, how do we imagine this scene weirdly and magically and messed up, and how do we embody it physically and find the kind of nuances of the emotional battles between characters and make them physical and big on stage and fun and comical. Those tools, those theatrical tools, are fun to play, and they're kind of like, I suppose I've been working with them enough so that they don't soak up 90% of my cognitive abilities when I think about them. But moving to the digital platform, it sucks up all of your kind of your cognitive faculties. You're going, okay, are we doing it live, or are we doing it recorded? Are we doing it 360 camera? Why do you do it 360 camera? Or are we doing it multicam? Are we doing it little GoPro? How do we how are we innovative with the form? Can we use Zoom chat? All of this stuff. There's just so much stuff that about the form that takes up my attention that it's hard to think of content, you know. So sure, that is the longest answer to a very simple question. So
I'm getting you. I'm totally finding the same thing, you know.
Really?
Especially doing like comedy, you know, and being so reliant on the audience and the feedback that we're getting from the audience. I mean, I've done comedy online now, and I've had to be like, I hope okay, you know, and just like moving right along. So I totally get you. It's like, I don't think any of us are used to this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, it is. It's strange. It's interesting to see other people adapt to it, you know, and everyone from the kind of my colleagues and people that I studied with and have been in the industry with, and people who are like big talk show hosts in America, and seeing their shtick being completely upset, and some of them really struggling. And then to this day, I kind of struggle to watch some of them, because I'm like, yo, that person really needed the kind of live laugh feedback from the audience. And then other people who, like, I suppose like John Oliver, who just adjusted quite quickly. There was like 3 or 4 episodes where I was like, he's struggling a lot, but then it just kicked into gear, and he kind of found a new shtick. He kind of leant more into the political side rather than angle towards the comedy side, you know, which he can do both, you know. He's very good. Yeah.
Totally. I'm totally feeling you. And tell me, you've done so much. You've performed, you've done theatre, you've directed, you've done TV, film. I mean, you've been in Cirque du Soleil. You've done so bloody much. How do you see yourself? Like, do you see yourself first and foremost as I'm an actor, I'm a performer, or is it just whatever comes?
It's a good question, and I think like that's the criticism that was leveled at me at university or before university was the sense that, and I think something that like was leveled against my mother, so she repeats it at me all the time whenever she can, is this idea of being a jack of all trades and master of none, and that it is quite. I mean, it was always. Most of the time it was a matter of availability and kind of desperation that pushed me into different forms. You know, it wasn't because I was like, I have a brilliant idea for a film that I went and did film. It was just because the opportunity popped up, and I got like strong armed and pressured by the producers to direct some films. So, I mean, your words are very kind, but they're also overselling me a little bit.
No, they're not overselling you. I guess what I'm actually asking you then, Dan, is what are you most passionate about? Where do you feel
That's a good question.
Creative self-expression?
So, yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, there's the things that I've felt the most joy doing have certainly been around live performance and around a kind of interaction with an audience, a live audience, and some of the kind of more clown-centric stuff that I did a little bit with Cirque, and that I did later in kind of devising work. So that's one avenue that I kind of hold quite dear, and had a hell of a lot of fun doing, and also learned a lot while I was doing it, enough to know that there's just so much more that I need to do and discover. So there's that dual thing of, hey, I really enjoyed doing it, and I need to get a whole lot better to carry on doing it and generate more work, and that dual thing is quite fun. But then also devising, theatrical devising, that's one of the best things. To be with a group of people in a room, kind of playing around themes and ideas and provoking each other and laughing at each other and being creative and also finding like new ways of seeing things. And the moment where someone has a good idea and someone else tops it with a better idea, and then someone else puts this cherry on top, and you've created a physical or performative sequence that's delicious to watch and like potent and like filled with meaning and content and as really interesting provocation. That stuff comes in tied with the kind of live clowning stuff. So a bit of devising and directing. And then I suppose there were moments in working in film that and television where the scripting and the kind of writing and the storyboarding process, the initial phase of developing a story for screen was amazing. And there was moments where I was like, oh, this is great. If only I were good at it, then it would be great. So I mean, film and television was always the thing that I was like, okay, I love it, but I just need to do it more to get better at it, you know.
It really is doing it more to get better at it. I mean, I had a role in something once, and I remember like I was like, what do I do between my lines? Like, what should my state be? And so like Brendan Murray gave me the most amazing advice. He was like, if you think it will show, which sounds really simple for like, you know, TV and film, but I was like, oh, that's all I have to do, because, you know, we are used to, as you say, like creating in a theatrical sense, which is full body and audience interaction and a lot bigger, whereas like this is here. And I personally, I started off and I'm like, oh my God, this is so cuck. I just pray no one sees me on television. But like you get better after doing it, and after going, okay, I kind of know what I'm doing now. The problem is something like TV and film is not really a place to test.
Yeah, that's the struggle, because you can only that's the beautiful thing about the rehearsal room and devising also, because it's built on failure. That's the thing. A lot of people say is that you make magic because you fail, because you strive for something and it messes up, but the mess up becomes more delicious and amazing and fun than the real thing. And even if it doesn't, there's a kind of embodied learning process in devising that. Whereas with film and television, especially with film, your rehearsals are like highly stressed. I mean, my experience of them, and they're kind of, there's not a lot of changes that you can make. I mean, generally, we were lucky in our position; we were able to adapt the script. Because the writers were there and the producers were there. But even so, the knock-on process of shifting and changing pieces of dialogue and improvising and playing with script is really, really, there's not a lot of failure and practice and stuff that you can do with that, which is really, really tough. A lot of the kind of play and failure happens in the writing room, which is the kind of where I prefer, and where I think I'm a little bit better than, I've had some experience performing for camera, enough to know that I'm not very good. Enough to know, because of desperation, we shot these 4 movies in Mauritius, and just out of a sheer act of desperation, I was cast as one of the people because there were limited actors in the pool. And I fought so hard not to be cast, because I was like, guys, I am familiar with this particular actor, and he is a rubbish actor, and you do not want him. But the producers hired me anyway. And there was the big penultimate scene is everyone, the entire cast of people, and some of them more experienced than others, are on this boat. And it's like a Sherlock Holmes kind of thing. And Sherlock is making the accusations and kind of going through the list of suspects. And then he points at me, and I've got like 2 lines to say, and it comes right at the end, of course, after everyone, all these kind of, some of them novices, people who have had limited screen time, and some of them like hardened, seasoned South African professional film actors and television actors. Everyone's had their line, everyone's knocked it out of the park, comes to me, and I mess it up like 14 times in a row. And I can see these other actors, and you're all sharing the room, and these other actors look at you as if they're just newly discovering you, and all the respect that you've gained with them by directing them for so long has just been undercut in once. Yeah. And they're like out the window.
I totally, that's so funny.
Yeah.
That's so funny. And also watching yourself. I mean, I hate it. I can't think of anything worse than watching myself, because I always feel like they choose the take where I'm doing this.
I can see why that is a very good look for you.
Thank you. Whoa, what is that emotion? But I totally get you, and that's so funny, Dan. That's so funny. But also, it's like kind of speaking to what we will do as performers, how we have to survive, how we realize we've got to adapt, and it's hugely commendable, because not everybody really, not everybody is able to do that. Not everybody is able to go, well, you know what, I'm going to do this directing thing. I'm not happy about it, but, let me be willing to take that risk.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the directing, it was a total risk, but also a massive opportunity, and I learned more than I've ever learned in a short amount of time. It was 2 months of shooting, and it was just like amazingly hard and with an amazing bunch of people, and biggest learning experience of my life. And so So in a way, I'm deeply thankful for it. And it kind of also made me go, this is something I want to do again. I'm certainly not act in front of the camera, but the process of piecing together a scene and a sequence and engaging with the dance of the camera and storyboarding and going, okay, what's the one frame that's going to what's underpin what we want the audience to feel from the scene, and now how do we build up to that, and how do we break away from that, and how do we find a counterpoint? It's a little bit like sculpting. You have got all of the options in the world when you start, and it's just about chiseling away the options around this central image or idea or camera movement or line or whatever it is. So I love that, and like hugely kind of privileged and lucky to be in that position.
Totally. Has there, because you've done so much. I mean, this is as I say, Cirque du Soleil, directed stuff for Netflix, really done it all in not necessarily a huge amount of time. Has there been a moment where you've gone, this is it, I've hit the big time?
This is it, Claudine.
I can think of 5 times you've hit it. That's
with you.
This is it. He's on the big time. This is his big time.
Sure. I mean, plenty of times, and then plenty of times just realized how stupid and wrong I was, I suppose. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about this industry, that you're only as good as the kind of last work that you did. I mean, that's a heavy thing to say, but in some ways there's a shred of truth in it. Is that's why we constantly create, is because because we find it hell of a fun, B, because it helps us survive and put food on the table, and C, because it's a way of kind of keeping on exploring what we want to say, how we want to say, who we want to say it to. So yeah, when I first left university, there was a moment where I was like, I just did a student theater work and I felt great and just awesome, and then realized very quickly that there was a lot more to do, and you kind of go on these peaks, and also reflecting back, looking at me, I was completely floundering and didn't really have a voice, and similar to theirs is constantly trying to reanalyze and find out what you want to say and how you want to say it. Going on tour with Cirque was a big thing, I suppose. The amount of people that you're exposed to, and the level of performance, and the skill of the performance that you're on stage with is also. There's a moment where you're like, I've arrived, I'm here, and then you watch other people do their stuff on stage, and you're like, oh, what am I doing here? Okay, I've got to get really good to be as watchable as these people, and kind of assuage my guilt of sharing the stage with them. So yeah, it's a complicated. So my general answer is yes. When I've been dumb, I've thought I've hit some kind of big time, but actually, hopefully there's a lot of big time to hit in the future,
So that actually is a great next question, which you ask yourself. What is your next big time? Or what is your big time? What's the big dream, goal, vision you hold for yourself?
Okay, that's a good question. I suppose writing is so much fun at the moment. So I'm really having fun writing for television, and to write a kind of film that is that's very South African and stylistically quite adventurous. That's going to be one of the next big steps and big places of kind of new adventure for me, because the films that I've kind of written and played in before are very they're kind of genre, and they weren't very seated in South Africa, and they were also governed by other forces. They were commissioned by producers, so a lot of the kind of style was set in stone by outside forces. It'd be nice also to try and find what my version of a filmic voice is, or so to do that, to push that, and then also I want to kind of make a show here again. I haven't made a show in a long time. Whether or not it's big time, I suppose is important in terms of how successful and how much money it makes in that. I suppose what's interesting is that especially with devising work, is you can't have that much of a focus on the success of it from the word go.
Yeah.
In a way, you kind of box yourself in. With devising work, you get the flavor of the work is somehow tainted by the sense of let's curate this work so that it is mass appeal and it becomes famous and it's amazing. No, some people can do that. That's just not what I'm able to do. I do that and it just ends up being mediocre and terrible. I suppose the success that I've had in theatre has been, I suppose, on the back of working with people who aren't focused on that. They're like, okay, if people like it, they like it. That's great. But what's more important is what are we saying and how much fun are we having saying it? So I don't know if I'm ever going to hit the big time, but that's also okay. That's fine.
Do you know what's so great about doing 6,000 episodes of the show? Is just hearing and being inspired by different people's view of what the big time is. Because, we, from an outside point of view, look at your life and go, I could name 20 things you've done that for me is a big time, and it's like how we view success and how we view what we're willing to do to get that success is just so interesting to me. That it's so different. It's so personal, actually.
It is. It is very personal. And I think it's also genre specific, right? I think success in theatre it feels very different to success in film or success in the music industry, for example. And the tiers of success and the separation between making it, killing it big time, and struggling, not sure if I'm going to carry on. The differences between them are very specific to each industry, and within each industry. So theatre, it's like the kind of musical theatre is quite different to experimental theatre, is quite different to the ideas of success are quite different. And I suppose physical theatre, your levels of success, of hitting it out of the park, of hitting the big time as a physical theatre performance are very different, and they're very limited. I mean, if you look at that and Black Coffee and people in the musical industry who are killing it, you can be top of your game and going like hitting it out the park and just like nailing it and big time, and no one knows who you are, Well, I mean, compared to someone like Black Coffee or in the musical theatre industry, there's so I suppose maybe it's just a matter of survival and sanity that I've always kind of tended to go, like the big time is to make the show fun and engaging and to get a massive audience reaction and to do that. That's good enough of a big time. I mean, I don't know.
I totally
also the accolades and the money and the tours and all of that stuff would be nice too, but
We're crossing fingers for that one, people. Dan, that's great. And while you were talking, I heard you speak about your voice. Do you feel that you found your voice? And is it different in terms of the different aspects of work you're doing, or is it like, this is me and this is what I want to put out to the world?
Sure, yeah, it's a good question. It's something that's kind of plagued me of late as well. I think there are a couple of things. Importantly, I think it's important that as an artist, for me, that you don't settle on a voice and just stick to it. I think there'll be qualities that always seep in, and I think those are generally unconscious qualities that guide how you say something, and what are the kinds of things that you're more likely or gravitate towards saying. But generally, for me, it's been quite tough to find a voice, because the social landscape has been shifting quite massively in South Africa and in the rest of the world, and the idea of storytelling, and also being a kind of white male storytelling, it feels like there's a responsibility for me to pay attention to the kinds of stories that I tell, why I'm telling them, what kind of voice am I giving to them. So it's been interesting, and in a way I value that. I think if your voice isn't changing, and if you aren't challenging your voice, then you're missing out on something. You've kind of settled into a rhythm as an artist, and that may work for some people, but that's not where I want to be. But it's also quite.
Sorry, carry on. I'm just getting so excited about what you're saying. Carry on.
But it's quite strange, and it's quite, I don't know, to go quite political with this response. It is quite challenging and exciting, challenging, and sometimes also just challenging, that I go, I don't know how to say or what to say with this, so I'm also just going to step back and listen as an artist a little bit more, Yeah,
I mean, the reason why I got so excited is it's so interesting for me and actually so logical, as you were saying it, to say that your voice can shift, and it should be something that shifts, with projects, or you evolve, so your work should evolve. Like I've heard a lot that it's like, and especially in something like comedy, that it's like, I found my voice, cool, this is what I do, like it's not something that is like malleable and something you can play with and change. And so that's so obvious now that you say it, but so interesting as well,
I mean, you also come from a kind of background where you kind of have your fingers in multiple pies. You've done a lot of live performance, you've done some television and film, and there's a lot of that, and your voice is your voice different in each one of them? Are there some guiding principles, or some like, do you lean a specific way, or are there any connections between the way you perform those, or are an artist in each of those fields?
Yeah, so I totally think there's a connection, but I saw it as this is, especially with stand-up, if I'm relating it to stand-up, now that you talking about film and TV, totally. Like, I've got a different voice for each and different things I want to say. And actually, when I'm doing stand-up, this is the way I best express myself. So this is my stand-up voice. Makes more sense of saying and going, this is my voice in terms of everything, Yeah. Totally. Yeah, I had a big aha moment where I was like, that's a great way of looking at it, Just a really good way of looking at it. Dan, tell me, what projects do you have either coming up during lockdown or post-lockdown? What can we expect from you?
Okay, so during and post, that's a good question, in that I'm not entirely sure when post-lockdown is scheduled to end. At the moment, I mean,
what are your,
as if I were to speculate. Hey?
No, I was joking. I was saying 20-year goals. Yeah, totally.
So so depending on my kind of mood, if I were to speculate, sometimes from day to day, post-lockdown could be tomorrow or in 20 years, but I think so while I'm at home, I'm doing a lot of writing for television and for some motion capture projects, some online education motion capture projects, which is quite fun. I mean, motion capture was the thing that I kind of discovered about 5 years ago with this great company, which has since closed down, called Flying Circus, which was this weird, which is basically how I got into television and film. Was that was an on-ramp, because I was used to dealing with physical theater and devising that motion capture where you kind of put the little bubbles in your head and the cameras record your location and then they put it onto the skeleton of an animated character. That felt like a good bridging between the two fields, and it felt like also quite specific as a talent or as a niche. People who have physical theater skills but also understand a little bit about camera, which I didn't initially, but that I learned quickly. So I've been doing quite a bit of that. I was doing it before lockdown, and then giving feedback on edit and of some online educational work, because online education is obviously exploding at the moment. So I was lucky to develop a relationship with a company called Talent Plantation, which is kind of just booming now as an online education platform. So doing that, and then speculating and projecting plans for when it's. I'm looking forward to being back in the room with some devices and playing with some stuff and watching some amazing work online. International work and local work as part of the festival stuff. That's very rare, and reflecting on stuff that great theatrical work that's filmed that you can watch and go, that's amazing. I wish I was there in that theater. It's beautiful and immediate, and a lot of that immediacy is contained in the performance. And then watching other people gravitate to different styles of going, we're going to really lean into the fact that we have control over the viewer and the audience and what angle they're looking at us, and leaning into the kind of edit and the musicality of it, and seeing some amazing stuff there. So yeah, I plan to kind of keep writing enough to keep food on the table and keep challenging myself, and then speculating and planning so that when lockdown ends, I can get back into the room and start playing again. Is the plan.
Amazing. So have you heard of the concept of an expander? I mean, people who watch the big, I talk about this with everyone. They're probably like, shut up. But okay, so the concept of an expander is kind of, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a mentor, because you're not necessarily taking their skills, or you know what I mean? Or learning from their process or their journey, but instead you're looking at them and you're saying, they achieved that, now I can do it. Like Trevor Noah would be a huge expander for me, or like, who are huge expanders in your life, and in what industry are they in, if you know what I mean? How have they affected you in that industry?
Okay. So a lot of my colleagues definitely are expanders. In the theater realm, a kind of dual role of expander and also kind of just brilliant teacher and director, Sylvain Strike, being able to work with her and do workshops with her, seeing her process and going, this person has access to a quality of such richness and poetics, and is so rooted in physicality that it kind of made me go, yeah, I really need to focus and pay attention and up my game. Or there's whole avenues and like subcontinents that are there to be explored, that I kind of watched her navigate with such finesse. So she is definitely one. I suppose my father also, but hard to say expander, because he's just been a kind of both my father and my mother, who are both brilliant, have just been a common feature of my life, So there've been a couple of moments where you realize, oh, my mother is good at what she does, and my dad is killing it. But generally, they're just a baseline reality. So they are expanders in some ways, and in other ways, they're just your more limited dad. And then seeing people perform in compatriots of mine perform roles in Cirque and do these quite massive roles and knock it out of the park, and me going, I mean, they're great, but I think I can do that too, you know. And then sometimes I'm right and sometimes I'm wrong as well. And so it's always a bit of a crapshoot with regards to that. And then film, certainly writing Gwydion Menon, who works for Chedza, who's one of the heads of Chedza Pictures, is I suppose also plays that role of is able to kind of has such a kind of commitment and focus to the work that when you watch him conceptualize a work or write around the work, it's replete with information about how to do it. You know, having a conversation about anything, I find myself picking up my mental pen and just documenting everything he says for later use. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the kind of have been and continue to be the expanders in my life at the moment. But of course, it shifts, doesn't it? I mean, for me, it does. Hopefully, continually gather expanders and people who kind of provoke and challenge, and yeah,
that's powerful stuff. Dan, where can before I say where can people find you, I actually just want to know if I am new to this industry, or I don't live my passion. I want to be performing. I want to be doing theatre. What advice would you give to somebody who's just starting off?
Oh, yeah, it's a big one. I suppose it depends what the more specific the kind of role that you're playing, the more specific the advice can be. I suppose if someone's entering the performance world, either film or television, the idea being, I suppose the most important governing principle is to have something, to spend a lot of time figuring out what you want to say. And how you want to say it is important, but also to push yourself back in, to want to perform is great, and there's an attraction to the audience and the limelight and the applause if you get any, or and the kind of likes and all of that stuff. But in a way, hey,
you may not get them. Don't do it for
the applause. At the moment, applause, you know, there's pretty few and far between, unless you have Claudine Alman on your on your speakerphone in the morning, applauding you for waking up. I mean, those things are great and they're fun. But if you live by them, it can be quite. There's a kind of hollowness to it, and there's also the audience can sometimes sniff that out. You know, I think what's more important as a guiding principle for that is to work on what you have to say, what you want to say. You know, there was a great physical theater teacher who goes, "You can teach anyone to say anything, but you can't teach someone to have something to say." So
power, Dad.
Hey?
I'm saying that's power. That's power.
That's power. That's a good thing. And I suppose it's an important time in South Africa and in the world to figure out what we have to say. So that would be my advice is figure that out and constantly figure it out and question it.
That is so power. And we are going to end on that note, because I don't know how much more powerful we can get here, people. That really was power.
You are the nicest person.
No, I'm being serious. You are so bloody inspiring. I remember seeing not translations. The moment I said that, it's your big thing with Sylvain and with
The Travelers.
The Travelers. Oh my God! The moment I said that, I was like, I remember seeing translation. I remember seeing The Travelers, and I was like, first year varsity or whatever, and I had never been exposed to physical theater. I was like, what is this? My mind is blown. So the stories that you are putting out there, whether it's through your performance, through your directing, through your writing, is just so inspiring. You're a huge expander for me. So I want to say thank you so much, and thank you for being on The Big Time. And what a legend. And where can we find you, Dan?
You can find me. That's a good question. figuring out where you can find me. Once lockdown ends, I'll be a little bit more active. But generally at the moment, there's a lot of work with there's some Netflix films that have just come out, and there are and say again.
What are they called? How do we find them? Like what genre?
You go on Netflix, and there's a movie called Camp Getaway, and another movie called A Horse Called Wish, and another movie called House on Seahorse Bay. And they're kind of fun family films that I kind of cut my teeth on directing. So there's that. And there's also talent plantation, educational stuff. So that's a kind of new thing that I've been kind of brought into play in. And then I suppose maybe in a theater once, depending on how all of this goes.
Amazing. I'm going to be following you. We are going to be following you, not in a stalkery way, but as I say, you're just such an inspiration. I adore you. I just think you are so wonderful. Thank you.
Kind. That's reciprocated, Claude. Thanks for having me on. It's the most interest anyone has shown in me for years. I just want to say that. I'm flattered.
Well,
I'm withering under the spotlight.
I am totally surprised by that because I just think you are too amazing. So, Big Time season 5, 6, and 7, you're on it, kid. Excellent. You're on it. Adore you. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you for having me on.
Guys, that was Daniel Buckland. Oh my gosh. Please follow him. You can go to Netflix, and I wonder if you type in Daniel Buckland, if all of his movies come up. So just what an incredible human being, such an inspiration to me, and I'm sure to a lot of you guys as well. If you guys are enjoying The Big Time, please keep these suggestions coming of who you would like me to interview, which celebrities you would like me to speak to. That would be awesome. If you are enjoying The Big Time, please, this is the time to hit subscribe. If you are on YouTube, subscribe to my channel. If you're on Facebook, subscribe. TikTok, follow me. And for more on The Big Time, I will see you guys tomorrow. Love you all. Bye.